We all follow a very basic structure in filmmaking, but it's little intricacies and nuances that develop the filmmaking meta. You need to be very mindful of the two terms I used earlier. Explicit meaning is perhaps some sort of moral of the story or socio-political attitude that a filmmaker's...
Oof. Okay. My bad. Sorry about that. I just really needed to say something. Welcome to the USA, where everyone needs a gimmick. Like I said, I have something to say. And that's just the point. Everyone has something to say. Everyone has a point to make, whether it be a story, a song, or just a simple message. Everyone has something to say and a way they want to say it. And in this day of age of technology and social media, it's anything but impossible to do, as long as you are determined enough to make it happen. Some are too determined to keep their message or story exactly how they want it, and by that, I mean the type of media they think it should be. TV and film are the big ones, but a third you might want to consider is the art of the podcast. Since the start of radio, audio recordings have been experimented with, from Superman serials of the 1940s to the warm, calming voice of an Alex Jones.
Destroy the child.
This is their plan, people. These are demons. Yes, of course I can hear you!
Keep with me here. Film is one of the greatest and most well-received art forms out there. But it's not the only one, and quite frankly, podcasts can do what film just can't, and that is the use of imagination. I don't care what you say. Everyone has imagination, and it's what helps us connect the dots in scenarios where there is no right answer. That's where we get those delectable internet theories, for anything from who Snoke was to Uncle Grandpa and the Steven universe. It's all about stretching our head sponges enough to generate our imagination. Now let me give you an example, and I know I'm giving you the most amazing examples right now. Stephen King's It was a great movie, but it was unlike the book. Why, you might ask? Well, with the high concept of a multi-dimensional being defeated by a group of children biting each other's mind tongues is hard to put to film. Maybe an anime, but how the hell do you screenwrite that? The same can be said with anything Lovecraftian, or anything else that allows our minds to come up with something much more magnificent than what we are given. Like when people cast actors in spots that we just can never take seriously. It's a real problem. But with podcasts, there's no budget visually. All you need to do is describe it and the audience will do the rest. I'm gonna play an audio file from the D&D podcast Eldritch Journeys I've been working on, just for you to listen to and imagine. Close your eyes. Blackness. No sound. Absolutely nothing. This is normal before the sound of wind comes, followed by the fading blackness into the picture of a well-lit forest. We follow slowly through the forest of misshapen trees, tall, dark, chipped bark as the camera begins to move faster and faster, causing the tall pines to disappear from focus as we steady our gaze on a brighter subject farther away. As we get closer and closer to the light, the trees in our peripherals seem to change from that of skinny branches to white, petrified bones. We think it has to be our imagination, but we are unsure. Finally, we exit the now bone forest as we are blinded for a moment by brighter surroundings, as our vision focuses and we are reintroduced to a familiar sight. Soulwood, a town that is lost and also found, now covered in a crimson red light being cast down by an unforgivingly angry sky. The camera seems to hover higher as we pass a still blue lake and a now empty cabin, followed by the collection of buildings in the center of town. A freshly demolished building drowns a portion of the town in rubble and dust as the camera picks up speed and quickens past a large group of townsfolk hiding a peculiar scene from our sight. We drop back down, face to face with a large crack that had ruptured from the ground beneath. We follow the crack faster than we have been, with the once cobalt but now glowering red mountain in the background, as we pick up more and even more speed before a few specks appear in the distance. At first just shadows, but as we come closer and closer, the shadows show their true colors. The camera closes the distance as the color fades from the beings, and we slow down before passing a slow-moving, full-haired deity to fixate on a group of individuals. One human sits carefully, tying up another female to a terrifyingly pale, tooth-filled creature. As Anixie and Syl look on at the walking deity, the camera passes the group before turning again to meet where they stand. A small boy grabs the hand of a taller boy and lifts his hefty sword in his other hand before the camera begins to zoom in on a hooded figure who pulls down his hood, revealing the extremely dark circles under his deep blue eyes. He speaks.
What the hell is that?
I guarantee that none of you are imagining the same thing. And that's the beauty of it. Rest assured, though, podcasting isn't just there for people who want to tell stories. Some people want to speak their minds, a message, or just to have a conversation. And that's perfectly fine. Amazing, even. There's people all over the world who want to make a difference and speak up, but have no means to take. But with the internet, make a movement, make a podcast. Someone better not steal that from me. If someone out there wants to tell a story or reach an audience to speak their side of the matter, but have little to no budget or people to star in it, get a microphone, download some sound effects, or some royalty-free music, and go to town. Even if you have no one else to voice in it, learn how to do different voices, and that'll be perfect. A lot of, if not most audiobooks operate under that idea, without music, and they are well received.
The joy of audiobooks is you can be driving, you can be walking, you can be ironing, you can be in the bath. It takes us back to our ancestors sitting around the fire, doesn't it? Telling stories.
Now don't get me wrong, podcasts are easy, but not that easy. I shouldn't even call them easy. You need a good microphone, software, and consistency. It sounds hard, but this is the internet, and we help each other just as much as we fight each other. There are hundreds of tutorials on here to help you get your start. And before you do, I want you to listen to some of these boys.
No damn breaks here.
Hi, my name is Metaroos.
Hello everyone, my name is Bruce Snoop.
I'm Brad of Earth, or Marvel Comics fans from Instagram.
And I'm Mister Gimmic. I think I wrote this video.
He does YouTube and stuff.
What was your podcast about?
It was called the Wondercast, and I basically started it because, well, this is kind of shameful to admit, but I read My Little Pony fan fiction. Yeah, Snicker, I get it.
My podcast is called the Snoopcast. Our podcast mainly revolves around animation and anything else that we come across in our humorous conversations.
I did podcasts for Outcast with me, Cosmic Matt, and General 70.
Our podcast was about the various kinds of beans and how they all taste the same. No, our podcast was where we would review movies and things like that, and do commentary about what we thought of different things. Basically any other kind of nerdy discussion.
How many people were a part of it?
8 people. Never again. Don't do that, folks.
2 friends of mine as co-hosts. These people are Mr. Meatman and ENTA. Met him through Twitter through former friends.
Well, it was me, you, and Void Creature, whatever he wants to be called.
Were you the editor or host? And if so, was it hard to run or rein in any of the others?
I was the host and editor. It was definitely hard to rein in certain people. I seem to have that kind of voice that people just tend to speak over me, and there was this other person who would go into these tangents, and then we'd be sitting there for like 10 minutes. They start talking, and you're like, okay, this might go somewhere. I could see where it might go somewhere, but then at the end, you're just like, okay, that didn't go anywhere. So definitely had issues with that.
I am the editor of this podcast. I edit the audio and visuals all by myself.
I was the editor and host, and Cosmic Matt was the co-host.
Yeah, I was executive producer.
Go fuck yourself.
No, head of marketing. I was basically just a co-host, and that's putting it best way for me. Gimmick here did everything. He did all the work. I just did the talking.
I mean, I was the editor and technically the host, and it was really hard to run and rein in both of you guys, especially with your busy-ass schedules. What I do want to say is, some of the time, it was hard to get you guys to fucking talk.
I think it's because, for us, doing a podcast and talking on a venue that we know a lot of people are going to be hearing, my social media, internet experience comes from pictures and text. I don't talk on my Instagram, really, so it was a new experience for me.
Any horror stories that came with it?
They like to hum and sing at like random times. It was just a horrible tick of them.
I think a lot of it is me and Void being very eccentric, is the nice way I'll put it. Give me an
example of your eccentric attitude.
We had a hard time not memeing around. And by memeing around, I mean just nonsense spewing out of our mouths constantly.
Oh yeah, you guys turned into living YTPs.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, we got some mail-in from Justin from Connecticut. And then you guys would be like, what, Justin? Or do you mean Rustin?
It's true. And the sad thing is we still do it.
It's so difficult just to have a conversation.
I know. I don't know what it is.
Is it still going? And if not, how come?
kind of went on an indefinite hiatus. Basically, life got in the way for pretty much everyone involved, and we all kind of went to go do our own thing. But I'd like to say that my podcast isn't dead, per se. I definitely have plans to bring it back at some point.
Yes, it's still going.
As of right now, it's currently not going, but we may start doing it again.
No, it's not still going. Like I said, to put it simply, it's basically scheduling issues, keeping things consistent. I mean, what's a podcast that we put out one episode 1 week, and then 3 weeks later we put out another one, and then a month later we put out another one? It just wouldn't work.
The reason it stopped for me, but it put like a weird strain on the relationship between me and Ed. He has this weird thing about scheduling, and I once drove to his house, picked him up, and brought him to my house in order to continue the podcast.
I remember that.
Yeah, and he just did not like that. I just stopped. I didn't want to like continue and try pushing everybody who didn't want to be a part of it.
We live very far apart.
Why do you like podcasts, and what made you want to start one?
The reason I like them and the reason I wanted to be in one is because I've always liked hearing a bunch of friends, a bunch of buddies sit around and talk about a subject. It's just fun to listen to, and it's fun to do. Even on a non-podcast scenario, just sitting around with my friends talking about a subject is one of my favorite things to do.
I like podcasts because I think if it's just a way just to sit back and listen to it when you're doing something else, sort of like when you're occupied and you need something else to listen to.
I'm a big fan of podcasts, and I really like to put them on when I'm doing chores, or I'm doing homework, or I'm in a long car ride. It kills time, and I love the dynamic of a lot of these podcasts. When I started with low experience, it was mainly for fun. Now I'm using the podcast as an avenue for another type of content to grow from.
What podcast do you listen to?
I used to listen to Rebel Taxi's Pizza Party podcast, but now not so often. I do listen to the Defunctland podcast, hosted by Kevin Perger, every single week. I also listen to my friend Glenn Walker and Mars Reviews' podcast, Half and Half.
That would be... Actually, I used to listen to Sleepy Cabin. They are coming back as of recording this.
Would you ever try again? And if you did, what would you do better if you could fix it all?
What I would do different is basically be more consistent with it, which I think I can do now.
That's the thing. I'm still learning. I mean, I did have some things that should make my podcast shorter, but they're supposed to be a long, at least as how I view them, a long medium of listening? I'm not sure what the word is. If I could do better, I'd structure it, limit the amount of people, work on trying to structure the free flow format of my podcast, and maybe word topics better to cut down on time.
And last but not least, any advice?
So here are some personal tricks of mine. Even though it may add a lot more editing, I would definitely suggest having every member record their own audio. Because of this, each member has crisp professional audio in the final product.
1, getting a decent mic, having a mute button in case someone walks in on you, and 3, be confident. You could say whatever you want, well, as much as YouTube will let you say, and my advice is just have fun.
The best advice, and the only advice that I'm going to give on this subject, is make sure that you're doing a podcast with people that want to do it. That way they don't quit on you halfway through.
Try to structure it. Just make a bullet point list of shit that you want to talk about. If you're going to make a podcast, make a topic sheet. That way, everyone in the podcast knows, they'll stay on the same page. For the most part.
Podcasts are an amazing way for people to learn or be entertained whenever possible. As lonely as this might sound, it can feel like you're not alone, and that you're part of a conversation with people you respect, love, or even hate. And on the flip side, podcasts can be used to be more intimate with your audience, and for them to get to know any content creator. It can also help with someone's speaking abilities and build confidence in the way you talk or hold conversations. And if you want to try your hand at this, just remember, like everything, don't try too hard to make a personality and just be yourself. That's how people will like you. I know I turn off the second I hear someone trying to be something they're not. And believe me, I'm not the only one who can tell. As long as we have ears, I don't think podcasts will be going anywhere anytime soon. But just be sure to add good things to this ever-growing haystack of audio entertainment. But you never know until you try. Effort is the first step to a task being complete and a dream coming true. So until then, clear your schedules, gentlemen.